Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
UK inflation has remained steady at 2%, despite predictions of a slight increase and all of the pressures that comes with it. But then there are also predictions of a 50% rate cut, especially as a result of the fact that there's been an election and there's a new prime minister. But somehow the UK economy has been able to hold it together. We'll be talking about this on the program as we'll be joined by Dr. Trying to get his exact name, Tokunbo Olorundami, Dr. Tokunbo Olorundami, who is a lecturer at the School of Humanities, York St. John's University. He's also a political analyst and digital process governance expert. Glad to have you join us virtually this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into it. Now, wouldn't it be rather too soon, going by the recent inflation rate, that to say that the UK economy is out of the woods?
Yes, you have predicted it correctly. Tempo. Yes, it's too early in the day to make any, firm judgment about, the UK inflation and the steadiness of the economy. Of course, despite and predictions, the economy is holding steady. Inflationary rate, as predicted by the Bank of England, they've held steady at 2%, which is great. However, we can only say that the economy has made a turn. They've just driven into a new road. There are forces ahead that needs cautionary, progression. There's a new government in place, and there's need for caution. Investors will also be observing to see what this new government will be doing. So yes, it's too early, but then it is looking promising.
So I'd like to ask, what do you think are the specific policies that the government might need to put in place to check this and say that it's positive in terms of the results at the end of the day?
Several policies. One is that the Bank of England need to continue to regulate, the interest rates and the inflationary forces. Secondly, the government's political will must be latched onto the drive to grow. So the three words that the economy needs to be channeled towards, focused on, and aimed at intentionally is growth, number one. Number two, growth. Number three, growth. And the Labour Party looks a bit ready. If body language is anything to go by, they're looking ready to engineer that kind of growth as it is at the moment. So no other policy will do as much as ensuring growth. However, caution, high caution must be exercised. One, because there's a new government in town. People, investors, everybody still going through that honeymoon season. Once they're out of that season, we will begin to understand if this government is indeed going to hold steady or, go the other direction, really.
The government of SOUQ did not hold steady, and of course, that's why we have a new government in power. He had sought re-election, and in hopes that he will be able to come back, made a lot of promises as regards righting some of the wrongs as regards policies. But then, listening to you hammer on growth, growing the economy, I must ask, what should the UK do to grow the economy? I mean, in Nigeria here, we're talking about increasing exports and foreign exchange. But for the pound as compared to the dollar, what would the UK do to grow the economy?
Well, that is That is £1,000,000 question there. There are a number of, to my mind, there are a number of factors that kind of decide which direction the UK economy, will go. One is this current inflationary forces that we're celebrating. Income is another, and we have seen one too many strikes in recent times. Either from the NHS workers or the public service workers asking for some kind of upgrade in their pay. So ascending to some of these requests will help steady the economy. Cost of houses is one key decider. Over the last few months, and during this season, the cost of houses has risen by 2 point something percent, which is not too bad. It's still a good indicator that investors can move into that arena and begin to help produce more houses, and then keeping the borrowing costs manageable. You want to keep it high enough to stimulate the economy in the right direction, but not too high as to crash small businesses capability to borrow and reventure into new directions or to grow the economy. So for a government that is new in town and they are shouting on the rooftop about growth, I think keeping borrowing costs at a manageable level will be one key policy that could engineer growth, in a very nice and steady way, given the current gains.
Okay, let me take that right of you. So we've talked about interest rates, and there are fears that the Bank of Industry might be cutting off interest rates anytime soon, especially with the new administration, probably just to steady the ship a little bit. But do you think, if you think that will be happening, do you see it happening in the next 3 months or 6 months, or don't you see that happening at all?
Um, you see, this question is one that can remove the bottom of the economy. It can, the Bank of England, as you have mentioned, has kept the borrowing costs at an upward trajectory, over the last few months. And essentially, what they're doing is active, you know, uh, active monitoring and evaluation to ensure that they're growing the economy in a way that is sustainable. If that reduction happens too sudden, you will have issues with the big banks, the big boys. IMF, Swiss Bank has just been acquired. And there's so much happening with banks now that you want to be careful about touching those indicators, especially one that could remove the energy of the ecosystem sharply. If you look back at pre-COVID, during the COVID season and now, the period of recovery, you will see that one factor that has helped to stabilize, if you like, more like it's almost like you're reducing and increasing the volume of a radio. If you like, that factor is that interest rate. And so reducing it, one, I am sure the IMF will frown at that, because the IMF is saying the UK needs to keep it on the upward, to maintain the current growth. However, the new government may want to reduce it to make themselves more, increase their affinity with the people and small businesses, and more like warm themselves into the hearts of the populace. But there's caution required in that business of either reducing or increasing, as inflationary rate has stabilized now. You don't want to tinker that knowing that we've just come out of a particular direction where the cost of living has, slapped most people down.
Okay, so Dr. Olorundami, I'd like to kind of bring this back home to us now. We've seen like an increment in our own inflation rate here. Looking at from May till now, we've had like a 0.24 increase. And then we're looking at how do we think the government back home here can look at how to temper with some of these issues, considering that our own inflation rate has made cost of food astronomical and almost impossible. Like an average Nigerian is literally starving. What do you think the government back home can do to deal with some of these issues?
Thank you. I will not rush to kind of compare the United Kingdom too early with Nigeria in terms of monetary policies and ventures, because we're talking about a Nigerian economy with a size of about 300 billion, dollars, to a UK economy that is almost about $4 trillion dollars. Sorry. So you can see that we can't compare these policies properly. However, in Nigeria, our problems are known, and some key issues hold us back. Mainly one, the herders and farmers clash that has been on for many years has seen many people throw in the towel and refuse, refusing to go back to the farms, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, can you hear me?
Well, in terms of policies now, short term, long term, are there policies though? Even though yes, we can't compare, but are there policies that you think the government can say explore long term, short term that might just a bit
One
temper, if you like, the rate at
one
which
main
it's flying now?
Yeah, one main policy, and that they're doing in the right direction, is that the recent livestock Ministry for Livestock or Committee on Livestock. I also read in the papers that the president is asking the military to convert fallow lands into agricultural lands and agricultural hubs and things like that. I think that some of the experts working with the current government understand the situation, and they know that growing food in a sustainable way is one key areas where you can help achieve very quick short-term growth in terms of bringing down inflationary rate. If we grow enough food to circulate around the economy in different hubs, you see that that will bring down the cost of food, in a way that is manageable. However, you know that the cost of transportation remains high, and that's because one of the most important factor in deciding how the Nigeria, buying and selling the economy goes was tinkered with in a way that preparation was not quite adequate to absorb the pressure, and that's the issue of subsidy removal on petroleum products. So that in itself, sort of turned the table against the forces. So these are some of the factors that I think is contributing. Again, we need to also seek the help of experts in relevant sector. I personally believe that our economy is quite heavily politicized. If we can make it an expert-based kind of economic venture where people are assigned to sectors where they can engineer growth in a way that is sustainable, that in itself will give the right signal to investors. Our justice system is still far behind. If investors want to come to Nigeria and they are not sure they can get their money out should anything go wrong, they certainly will not come. Okay, those that are currently investing in Nigeria, people like Dangote and Co, we need to begin to see how they can, their returns can send out signal to potential investors. The security situation in the country is also another one. People are holding back. Would you want to put your money in Nigeria where you know that things could start getting out of hand so quickly before you say Jack Robinson and you've lost your money, or put it in another African country where there's some kind of stability in terms of security? So there are forces that are working, actively against that growth. But as to appear, the current government seem to be identifying this and tackling them head on. Don't forget, we have been in the woods with, these herders, farmers, kidnappers, and all of that security situation that has held people back from going to their farms. And now we are facing a potential food security crisis that has also engineered prices on the upwards. And Naira is tumbling every day, so these fluctuations, they don't they don't inspire confidence in any economy. Once we can get them stable, we will begin to see the numbers turn in our favor.
One word that I'll take out from all that you've said in the last 3 or 4 minutes will be stability. And just like the British weather, has it been experiencing a lot of instability and fluctuations, raining one time, next minute is so sunny. But then if we had to also bring it back home once again, can you actually make people go into agriculture with the evolution the world is experiencing? Everyone is seeking out AI, trying to see if they can get an AI powered house, an electric car, talk back phones and all of that. There's just this thing about going into agriculture, tilling, getting your hands dirty to produce food. And as such, what can government do? Because there's been a lot of talk as regards the fact that we have arable lands, we have, yes, arable lands, I can't, for lack of better word to describe, yet we're not taking advantage to produce what we consume. And so you have tomatoes, onions produced in the far north, and then you have cassava, maize in the southeast. I personally believe that some of these things can be produced any part of the country, especially under the right condition. But then, what will government or what can government do to ensure that we have food produced in sufficient quantity, especially now that people are not thinking in that direction? A lot of people do not want to go into agriculture for obvious reasons.
Um, I'll start right from the top where you mentioned, can government force people into the farms? No, the government cannot. However, there are incentives that could push people in that direction. Incentives in terms of monetary incentives, incentives around some of the challenges, like challenges of security, access to soft and heavy loans, access to machinery. One great story coming out of Africa, in Nigeria, and I think Senegal, is the massive acquisition of machinery for agriculture. You mentioned AI. We cannot be launching into some of those deep ends of tech, without the needed infrastructure to keep things sustained. For example, our tech skill hub, how large is it? How many software engineers do you have in Nigeria who can begin to venture into the creative and innovative ends of AI and channeling, the use of AI into developmental, KPIs, actively ensuring that AI is being used in the way it should be. For example, channeling AI into agriculture, and there's been some venture in that ecosystem where you can match certain seedlings to specific soil, and you can predetermine the yield. You can also actively have a plug-in system for nutrients for plants and ensuring that the plants get what they require, and you're not wasting resources in terms of water and the nutrients they need. Vertical farming is also something that is on the rise globally, where you can farm upwards rather than horizontally on the ground. So these are some of the areas where government can begin to, advocate for, not necessarily spend a lot of money as one would expect, but advocacy is key. backing it up with the political will to ensure that people can get into that space, operate and profit from doing that is also another factor. So look at our security situation, for example. This has driven a lot of farmers away from their farms, and that needs to be addressed head on. Access to loan, access to machinery, as I've mentioned, other items that we could look at, actively. I know that there's a lot of going on in Niger State, and that governor, I admire his strategic approach. Looking to convert lands that have been hitherto occupied by militia, groups into agricultural lands, and he's providing incentive, for example, to youth corpers who have served in the state, saying, if you will stay on to produce food, we will give you this, that, and you'll be on so salary. This type of incentives can, and I would expect it to turn the table around very quickly. These are very low hanging fruits that the government I think, can begin to harness and harvest. Agriculture is something we can do. However, seasons will impact on when, how, and what. However, we can sustain a very energized agricultural revolution in the country if attentions are well channeled and the energies are harnessed properly.
Okay, so I'm going to just piggyback on your talk about the tech hub and the size of the tech hub that we have here in Nigeria. And I'm going to just quickly link that to the Jackpot syndrome, if you like, brain drain, and the wave, and how we've had like an exodus of a large number of skilled Nigerians leaving the country in a large number. Do you think that somehow this might have some contributory effect to what we are experiencing, or it is in no way related? What do you think?
So your question is the jackpot syndrome, somewhat impacting on our economy? Is that what you're asking?
That's the question, yes. Do you
Oh,
think it
brilliant.
is? Because it looks like
Oh,
there's
no,
a
no.
large, I'm saying that because you talked about the size of our tech hub. An average
Yeah.
Nigerian who has gotten some sort of knowledge and expertise in that field thinks that the Nigerian environment would not allow him or her thrive well enough and earn the kind of money that he or she might want to earn. And so the other option is to go somewhere and enabling environments and all of that. And so, yes, that then leads you
Well,
to hustling for the visa and getting out. I'm asking
okay,
now,
well,
don't you think that that is somewhat contributory to what we have?
yeah, yes and no, because you see, tech is kind of ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And I mean, I just got back from Nigeria like a few days ago, and I was still working while in Nigeria. Yes, with some frustration because my SIM was not quite registered and things like that. So yes and no. No, because you can work from anywhere. You do not need to japa to work in the tech industry currently. It is your skill set that will determine how far you go. And I can say that as one who has worked in that space and I've taught in that space and I've operated in that space. However, the size of our tech hub, as I mentioned, yes, is gradually dwindling because the few that we have are seeking opportunities out there where they can take their skills and benefit more. And you cannot stop anybody from doing that. It's as good as the UK looking for a new head of treasury or they're looking for what you would call a CBN governor. And when they're doing that, they go global. They're not looking whether it's Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, or wherever. They go every and anywhere where they can recruit the best mind to handle that job because they know it's a job that requires a very high skill set and they don't care where you're coming from. If you can't do the job and you have the right background and record, to do it, they will hire you. So that is, the uncanny nature of an economy that wants to survive. You're not looking at affiliations like we will in our space, and that is also holding us back on many fronts. So yes, the economic squeeze and contraction we're experiencing now is also suffering from the jackpot syndrome, where the best of the best of the best are leaving because their skills are being sought elsewhere. So yes, it's a contributory factor, and it has reduced the size of that pot. We are not one of the largest per square kilometer location for technicians within the software industry. US, India take the lead. Israel is also another hub. Nigeria, even in Africa, I wouldn't say that we're taking as the lead as such, but we are suffering from the current heat in the Japa syndrome. That is contributing as well.
We've been speaking with Dr. Tokunbo Olorundami, who is a lecturer with the University in London. And of course, it's on the sidelines of the inflation of the United Kingdom remaining steady at 2%. But then we've been able to juxtapose that with what we're having in Nigeria, West Africa, where inflation has skyrocketed and prices of food has soared. Dr. Tokunbo, the CBN, of course, are not perturbed, if I had to describe it that way, led by the central bank manager, Yemi Cardoso, saying that the members are satisfied with the way things are because, the Monetary Planning Committee members are satisfied, but they're calling for some fiscal policy to stabilize things, if I had to, put that way. What do you think about the body language of the CBN as an entity towards the issue of inflation and then the naira to the dollar exchange rate?
I haven't paid much attention to the body language of Mr. Cardoso. However,
A body, I don't want to single out the central bank governor. They don't seem like everyone, analysts, economists out there, seem to have a problem with, how high the inflation is in Nigeria. But they just seem a little bit relaxed. For me, I'd say.
I don't think that they are sleeping well. And I will say this not from a very high end political perspective, but from the operational expert base point of view. Turning around an economy is not a day's job. You must be careful at understanding what numbers you need to tinker with. Already, yes, the government came into a storm where subsidy was removed just as they came in, and there was nothing to buffer that effect. So you can imagine the recovery that they are, engineering currently. And I'm not holding brief for, the managers of the economy. I would rather speak to what I think they need to be doing in terms of giving out the right indicators and vibes. Last week, right up to this moment, Naira has been tumbling again, as we saw earlier in the year. And within months, we're right back, trying to manually hold, manually control, using manual measures to sustain the value of the Naira. That is not sustainable. And I said it, in some forum when this happened the first time. It's not something you can manualize. You cannot keep throwing in money, removing money, giving money to forex traders, doing this, doing that. The market must take its course. You must allow the forces of economics to buy themselves, engineer themselves, and balance out. like you have in the UK. You know, the service inflation is stable. Prices are still dropping. Some prices of goods are dropping. You know, don't forget that in the UK as well, the Ukraine-Russia war made the cost of energy go up astronomically in the UK. However, you know, through strategic thinking and strategic venturing, you know, the government has quickly sourced alternative pathways and they have stabilized. They're not back completely, but they've stabilized, you know, the inflationary rate within that energy sector. Again, you know, the war between Hamas and Israel, you know, had a hit on the UK economy, especially with the cost of living and cost of goods and services and groceries, you know, where ships were being identified by Yemenis rebels and they were launching rockets at them. Immediately, the UK government responded by sending out their jets to respond and to ward them off. That kind of quick recovery, quick intervention, you know, stepping out in front of, you know, many of the monsters, you know, challenging our economy, if I may use such normative language, stepping out in such a way could send out the right signal. And perhaps Temple, that's why you think that these people are a bit relaxed, they're not bothered as such and things like that. They're buying cars for all the House of Assembly, SUV, and all of that. They're not cutting costs as you think they should. You know, they're spending a lot of money. So you will be wondering, are you bothered at all as a government that you know the inflationary forces are up on the roof? So I agree with you. However, I think it's not a walk in the park, and it's not a day's job. It will take some time before we see steadiness, we see some changes, and we see some direction.
Okay, I hope this doesn't sound overly ambitious, but I'm taking the question to the Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is leaning towards ending poverty and sustaining agriculture and seeing that less people are hungry, say like in the year 2030 for points. So now, do you think that there are things that the Nigerian government here can do towards saying that we do not totally fall out in the race for this Sustainable Development Goal 2? And see how we stay in the race, for lack of a better way of describing, and see how we can help this. Are there like solutions that can be proffered, like progressive measures that we can take? Like while we're here where we are, what routes can we explore to take us out of this ditch and then aim towards getting into that global race, if I may ask?
Okay, you know, none of the SDGs are standalone force by themselves. The SDG is a holistic package. You cannot achieve SDG 2 without talking about SDG 5, SDG 12 particularly. If you want, you can bring up SDG 12 right now, particularly, and I like to speak to that. I can't remember if I gotten it right, but SDG 12 particularly, I have spent some time talking about that in recent times in a business school in Scotland, because right now, um, as a way forward, the SDGs are now being embedded in the pedagogy and curriculum of many business schools because of SDG 2. If you must reduce poverty, you must innovate. You must increase industrial base for growth. Okay? So it's not you're not being overly ambitious. You're saying what is what is key, what is relevant. For example, one very good example that I would want to celebrate in this current Nigerian government is the restoration of financial autonomy to the local government. Okay, By restoring financial autonomy to the local government, you're returning the power to the local government. You're returning energy for growth to the local government. It therefore means that the local governments that have hitherto been left, people gone abroad, people gone elsewhere, people not getting jobs because they don't think there's prospect for good earnings there, those local government can begin to rejig their system and rethink their processes, bringing back people into that job market, employing the right people. And by so doing, imagine that even if it's just 700 local government doing this, see how fast that single policy, if properly managed with innovation happening in 700 local government, see how poverty will disappear. So just that one policy, although incomplete, is an incomplete circle currently. Is just giving financial autonomy without political autonomy to local government is basically, I don't see it as an achievement as such. However, it looks promising. Once that circle closes and the local government can by themselves see themselves as equal partners with the state and federal government, they can sit at the table, make demands with clarity, make demands with plugins to their own strategic goals back home, you will see poverty reduce. So I don't think any of the SDGs stand alone as such. They need to work together with other indicators in those 17 SDGs to bring about the successes that we're talking about. Climate change, for example, if we don't manage climate change, we certainly will suffer for it. It's an existential problem. And that is also driving partly the farmer herders wahala that we have in Nigeria. Because when the waters dry up north, they will go down south to seek, and in that instance, they will be clashing with the farmers. And if one overpowers the other, one will have to give way to the other. So these are so interlinked, intricately interlinked, and the interconnectedness is very, very marginal. So we can't take one and leave the other. They need to work together and by themselves achieving, as they go.
The MPC will be meeting for the fourth time next week, 22nd and 23rd of July. We're hoping that they don't get to increase the MPC rates again. In as much as the CBN believes that the further increase might tighten things up and positively affect the Nigerian economy. However, just before we let the curtains drop gradually, do you think some Nigerians in the diaspora or in diaspora benefit from the increase of the exchange or the exchange rate, Nigeria's currency tumbling, and then you now have more financial power to send back or invest back home?
Well, I doubt, because if for anything, what I know from my experience or interactions with a few of them is they are more like grunting just as much as we're grunting here.
Really?
Yes, because
But they're able to do much more
back home.
Yes.
Well, that's for those who believe enough in the Nigerian dream. There's the temptation to say, oh, if it is scary back home, not everybody will want to see it as let's take advantage of this situation. Some will say, who knows where this is headed? Why don't I just save my pounds and keep it where it is, where I can see it, and then instead of just putting it somewhere where we're not sure where the tide is going to flow, just maybe in a matter of seconds. So I don't know. Well, I don't know if I can really say it's supposed to be advantageous to them. Oh, well, I guess it's one man's meat being another man's poison. It's a function of who is economically savvy enough to see this as an advantage and who is just saying, oh, well, I'm the pessimist. Let me just keep my money where I can see it.
Well, we'll be wrapping things up. I mentioned just before we started the program that today is Nelson Mandela International Day. 67 years devoted his life to service of humanity.
Absolutely.
The man Madiba.
Yes, the man.
I mean, when you hear Madiba, what comes to your head? I mean, what comes to your mind?
Well, I think of a man who made himself a voice, who, I mean, he enjoyed a lot of love from the people in the sense that he lived a selfless life. More like made himself into that man who says, I'll take the beating for you. If you feel better, well, I take the beating. And so it earned him a lot of love. And so I'll say that for me, He's a symbol of selflessness. And then wisdom. He has so many quotes that we all can still live by even today. And so I'll say that he's managed to live a life that nobody would ever forget about.
And if I had to just push a little further, post Nelson Mandela, how do you describe South Africa now?
Well,
the ANC has continued to.
It looks like they will never leave the news for whatever it is that they fight towards. But I would wish that maybe somehow there could be a young Nelson Mandela who would spring forth from maybe from his army, because I'm sure there will still be people who would have that passion, that blood pumping in them, and they are still saying, go Madiba, go Madiba. Like, it would be nice to see somebody spring forth, like a new Mandela, if you like, and that can just, trail that part and see if we can have it back where it used to be.
Well, the United Nations joins the call that people all over the world should dedicate 67 minutes to helping others to mark Nelson Mandela's International Day. And that's where we would let the curtains drop. We've had a great program, you would say.
I agree. I mean, you did some Yoruba lessons. I'm hoping that if you just, give me some, maybe pounds now.
Really?
I might think about teaching you a bit. I mean, alphabets to start with. So think about it.
We'll exchange currencies. I have a dollar, you give me a pound.
Now that's looking like an Igbo man sense. That looks like an Igbo man sense if you ask me. I'm not buying into that.
Well, LA Exchange comes back tomorrow exactly at 8 a.m. And yes, we're looking forward to issues as regards culture, music, and art. So it's something that you might want to join us tomorrow for. It's going to be a full house. So I'm tempted to say, join us tomorrow. It's worth your time.
I have a very great time on the show today. It is my hope that you did learn a few things and maybe start a conversation where you are. Do not forget that you can join us on social media. We are across all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look for SOUQ News Television. Make sure you click a like or a follow button, and then you'll be following us wherever you go. It's been a great time hanging out with you this morning. My name is Temi Omole. Live your dreams.
Yes, indeed. Great quote coming from Temi. A way to sound it up, but I'm going to be looking for breakfast right now. Many thanks to our producer and everyone who has ensured that you could receive us crisp, clear, and sound. My name is Barah. See you when I see you, and bye for now.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.